Dick Tracy.
He's got a bulldog jaw.
Dick Tracy.
Why, he's the arm of the law.
Dick Tracy.
Well, he can prove what they say.
Crime doesn't never pay.
Yeah.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey kids, welcome to Grumpy Nostalgia, the Second Look Cinema podcast, the show where we go back to the blockbuster new release wall of our memory, grab a copy off its shelf, pop it in our VCR, and see what time has done to it. I'm Justin, that's Mike.
What a dame.
I don't like dames. And together we're here to help you navigate all the landmines littered down memory lane. Okay, Mike, so we survived another Halloween. There's no more horror.
Yes, well, nah, there's no more spooky horror. Let's say.
Yeah.
There's still horror in our life.
Yeah, we, as is the case with most of our season premieres, we kind of hit the bottom of the barrel just to go out of the gate running, Mike. And
Yes.
I usually, this is behind the fourth wall for our listening audience, I usually task Mike with his unique skill set that he has to pick a particular dog to kick off every
Yes.
season. And Mike understood the assignment very well
Oh,
week.
Yeah.
So we're going to replace 5
Dog
weeks
of fleas, Justice. This is a dog of mange and fleas.
Yeah. So we're going to replace all that fear with absolute boredom. All right. So we're going to go back in the time machine a little bit here, guys, and we're going to talk about Dick Tracy from 1990.
Yes, a big blockbuster at the time. Trust us, it was 34 years ago.
People really cared about this for some reason. All right. Well, as we always say, Mike, there are no bad movies. They're just movies we don't like. And spoiler. Anyway, all right. So this was directed by a guy named Warren Beatty, Mike.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, still is, I guess, the movie star. He's kind of like the later years here. He's just kind of retired, semi-retired from acting now. I think he's not really in the game anymore. I think he's like 100 years old, so that doesn't help either.
He's got to be in at least his 80s for sure.
But from the 70s to the 90s, this guy was pretty much Hollywood. He fits the role as a movie star and quite the
Dame magnet.
Yeah. We'll get to that here in a little bit. So all those things notwithstanding, incredibly talented guy. He also directed the movie Reds, Mike, which I know you're not a fan of, but has some critical weight behind it. Heaven Can Wait, Bulworth. He's responsible for all those films. Had a hand in writing here too, but uncredited. This was written by a guy named Jim Cash, who brought us Anaconda, Mike. Viva Rock Vegas. Legal Eagles and Top Gun, Mike.
Okay, all right.
Joined by his writing partner here, Jack Epps Jr., who did all those things as well, but also wrote a lot of Kojak episodes, Mike. So,
oh, there you go. It's everything but the lollipop in this movie.
Hey, Jack, you know who loves you? Not me, baby. And it's, of course, taken from the source material by Chester Gould, who wrote the OG comic book back in the 30s. It had a budget of $47 million, Michael, and it was released on June 15th, 1990, as the tentpole summer blockbuster for that year.
Yes,
Primarily a reaction to Batman the year prior. So we'll get to some of those comparisons here as we kind of go through.
Yeah.
All right, so this is Big Hollywood, Mike, and Big Hollywood always has big Hollywood actors. So they really opened up the floodgates here. And why don't you walk us through the cast of characters?
Yeah, I guess Warren Beatty had a lot of pull getting some of this cast because it's as long as a gorilla's arm, man. It's so many names and people you recognize. A lot of them are like tough guys from crime movies, or even some back from the original Dick Tracy movie in the 50s. But it begins and ends with our star Warren Beatty, who plays Dick Tracy and got his name for being a Bonnie and Clyde. And we all wanted the repairing of Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman, of course, after they were in Ishtar. So, hey, why not bring in Dustin Hoffman, as play Mumbles, which is probably my favorite character in the movie.
Oh yeah, he was great. He just did it as a favor. I don't even think he got paid, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, it seemed like it. Yeah, and Al Pacino. How do you get such a big name? And he ends up playing the main villain in the movie. So you got that going for you. You have to have the flavor of the time, which is Madonna as the femme fatale in this movie,
Yeah.
and playing Breathless Mahoney. I'm not sure at the time she was married to Sean Penn or they were dating or off and on, but I'm sure she was doing something with Warren Beatty on the side, but that's neither here nor there. You might know a little more than I do about it. She was not bad in this movie. I mean, she's had a lot of hits and misses over, her career. League of Their Own, she's playing herself, and she did really well in that. And Evita, I think, that was probably her signature movie. And then you got movies like Shanghai Surprise and Swept Away, which is one of my favorites, which I think she did with her second husband, Guy Ritchie.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's her. Glenn Headley is in this movie as Tess Trueheart, which is Dick Tracy's true girlfriend.
Right.
She was phenomenal in this movie.
Love her. Great actress.
Yeah.
Passed away very, very young, actually.
Yeah. And if you ever see her in a really good role, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Oh, fantastic in that movie.
She's really good in that movie, playing against Steve Martin and Michael Caine. Just a fantastic part. Dick Van Dyke is in this as another kind of seedy guy in this movie. He's a DA.
Yeah.
And he's still alive with. He must be what?
I think he hit 100.
He's almost 100.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Wow. You had Uncle Lewis from the Friday the 13th TV show, and also he was in Predator too. I think he was a general or colonel,
Yeah.
But he was prune face, so perfect role for R.G. Armstrong. You had the principal from Back to the Future playing another bad guy. You had Paul Sorvino playing a bad guy. You had Charles Durning playing a cop with a weird Irish accent that was oddly similar to like Chief O'Hara. I guess that's what they're going for. Every cop is Irish, I guess, from the 20s and 30s.
Nothing to see here. Keep moving.
You had Quato's host from Total Recall. He had a brief moment in this movie. You had
Quato. Wherefore art thou, Quato?
Always have to mention a Quato. You had the reteaming of Kathy Bates and James Caan in a movie. I don't know.
Was that Kathy Bates? I couldn't.
Yes, it was a blink and you missed it role, but yeah.
She played the unfortunate stenographer for Mumble's testimony.
Yes.
I know you want to do it. Don't like I don't. I do. Yeah, I do.
Great little role, but it was a blink and you missed it thing.
Yeah.
And I guess Misery must have come out either in 90 or 91. Inigo Montoya is in the movie. Yeah, and Mandy Patinkin is in here.
Oh, Mandy
Patinkin kind of role. Even Kevin's mom from Beetlejuice is in this, and another blink and you'll miss it role from Catherine O'Hara.
Yeah.
Even Estelle Parsons and Michael J. Pollard got a kind of a bone from Warren Beatty by being in Bonnie and Clyde, and here they are together in Dick Tracy.
He's Bug. Yeah.
Bugsy a Bug. Yeah. And I want to give special mention to the kid because I remember this from before. This kid who plays the kid in the movie actually grows up, and I'm always fascinated by kid actors and how their futures end up. This guy actually ended up going to MIT and Yale Law School, and good for him. So I think he was in maybe another couple of movies after this, but he got out of the business, and I think he's a law professor. So good for him.
Yeah.
And then
ironically, probably the best actor in this movie.
Yeah, he wasn't bad.
Really good.
You could tell he was really intelligent
for a kid actor.
For a kid actor, he played it well. So there you go. That's most of your meaty cast in this movie.
All right, thank you, Mike. So some other news and notes about the cast and subsequent making of the movie. So Warren Beatty's kind of famous because he's turned down everything in Hollywood, including Han Solo and other roles. You name a major role from the 70s and 80s, he was offered it first. Other actresses considered for Madonna's role here were Kim Basinger, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Sharon Stone. I think all three of those femme fatales would have worked perfectly.
Yep.
Al Pacino annoyed everybody because he stayed in character the entire shoot.
What's the matter? You bums? Doesn't your work mean anything to you anymore? Have you no sense of pride in what you do? No sense of duty? No sense of destiny?
Say that.
We talked about Glenn Headley. She came in after Sean Young was fired.
Oh, wow.
Creating an odd pattern for her early in the 80s, late 80s and 90s, where she just got fired a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was a victim of her own decision.
Sometimes self-inflicted, but oftentimes not. This had Danny Elfman doing the soundtrack, of course. we'll talk about this as we go, but the comparisons to the blockbuster the year before, Batman, are pretty blatant. Part of the reasons I didn't really like this movie in the first place, because for some reason I chose to defend Batman. I chose to die on that hill. No one asked me to. But I'll get to that here in a little bit. This is the highest grossing Warren Beatty film ever.
Wow.
We'll get to that when we get to the awards and accolades. He bought the rights for this early, like as soon as early as 1980, Warren Beatty did. He wanted to make this into a movie for all this time. Shopping it around for a director. Martin Scorsese was the first pick, and he actually agreed to do it, but he wanted to do like a more serious kind of film noir version of it, and he wasn't given final cut, so he quit, and then it was shopped around just about every director in Hollywood, and finally Warren Beatty said, you know what, I'm a director, I can do this, so he did. There's 21 villains, all from the Dick Tracy comic book, all make an appearance in the film. Played by every character actor in Hollywood, as Mike kind of it was great. They wanted to make sure they got them all in case there wasn't a sequel. They wanted to capture that aesthetic at least. So, good call.
Yeah.
We talked about the kid. Macaulay Culkin was turned down this role because he was Macaulay Culkin. He could do whatever he wanted. Madonna only made $35,000 for this movie. That was her salary,
Really?
which is back in 1990 barely scale, Mike. So there might have been some quid pro quo with Mr. Warren Beatty there somewhere. But,
most likely.
One of the redeeming features of this film, of course, is the way it looked, the art direction, the cinematography. That's kind of its best feature. It was interesting because they used the same 6 primary colors that the colorist used for the original comic book, which I think was a bit of genius there. The film has an aesthetic that's very unique, very original, and really is the standout feature of the film. I wish I could say the rest for the other aspects of the film, but we'll get to that here in a minute. It was the last movie to really make use of the matte painting. You notice all the backgrounds here are paintings.
Yeah.
There's no CG.
Give them that at least.
Yeah.
They wanted a certain look, and they were like, by golly, we're not using anything new or modern.
Yeah, and it really gives the film a signature look, especially for nostalgic film fans like us. It was an 85-day shoot, and there's a nearly 1 year in post-production, Mike, and I think a lot of that was compositing a lot of these backgrounds and screens to make everybody look in place. So there you go. So we're talking about 1990 here, Mike, before they had a lot of modern technology, so a lot of the effects are practical, and we talked about the matte paintings and the original art decoration being old school Hollywood. Some other things going on in 1990 on the film side, at least. Mike, in theaters before this came out, you had another 48 Hours, Total Recall, and Back to the Future 3. We're at early June. This came out on June 15th, along with the Gremlins 2, the new batch.
New
Mike.
batch. Oh yeah.
Not good. The week after, we had RoboCop 2 come out, which is one of my favorite campy movies of all time. Probably talk about that at some point. Then the following week, Mike, we had Days of Thunder.
Yes.
Another brilliant podcast that your host covered last year. Go back and check that one out, gang. The top movies that year in 1990 were Home Alone, Ghost, Dances with Wolves, Pretty Woman, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Mike.
Oh my gosh.
Narrowly beating out number 6, which was The Hunt for Red October.
Oh man, no way.
The Ninja Turtles had
They beat the
bigger box office than there you go.
That one hurts.
Different time, Mike.
Yeah.
Oscar for Best Picture that year went to Driving Miss Daisy.
I'm trying to drive you to the stove.
So there you go. The music scene, Mike, we can't not talk about music when we're talking about the 90s. On the top 40 charts here, you had the song The Power by Snap. Snap was telling us how he had the power, Mike.
He's got the power.
I Melt With You by Modern English. It's a great band. Saw those guys live on a retro tour. And then I saw their that song used for a Burger King commercial.
Nice.
And I promptly threw up. Unskinny Bop by Poison was on the charts here, Mike.
That'll make you throw up.
Annoying metal songs ever.
Yeah.
You had Belle Biv DeVoe with a "Do Me!" exclamation point. Mike. I don't know why the punctuation is needed there, but
It's really emphatic about that.
Yeah, and then you had "Step by Step" by the New Kids on the Block, Mike.
Oh.
Junky little boy band songs. Good stuff right there. Other things going on in 1990 on the sports scene, at least, you had Ken Griffey Jr. and Sr., the first father-son duo ever to play on the same major league team. They hit back-to-back homers as Seattle Mariners in one of their first early games together, so that's cool. Much better result than the most recent event of nepotism where Bronny James scored 1 point.
He got a point. He got a basket. Did
he get a basket? All right.
Yeah.
Playing with the greatest player of all time except Michael Jordan and about 14 others, LeBron James. TV, we're watching Murphy Brown, The Golden Girls, and Empty Nest, Mike. We'll talk about Empty Nest. That's great.
Oh, yeah.
When I say great show, I mean not great show.
Hey, it was a Golden Girls spinoff. It was,
was it? I did not know that.
Yeah, they introduced Richard Mulligan in like a Golden Girls episode, and then voila, a couple weeks later, he's in his own show.
I watched. Speaking of him, I watched Little Big Man not too long ago, and I forgot that he played Custer in that. It's just phenomenal. Just a great role. You had the release of the Bob Mackie Barbie this year.
Hello, Frisco.
It's fabulous. All decked out in gold. You get one on eBay for about $150 right now if you're careful.
Serious collectors only.
Exactly. Yeah. Our favorite candies, of course, were Cream Savers, which had been discontinued, but I saw them make a triumphant return at the Rite Aid pharmacy. I grabbed a couple bags of those. Fantastic. We were gobbling down Warheads, Pop Rocks, and Nerds, and Everlasting Gobstoppers, Mike.
Thank you, Willy Wonka.
Yeah, Willy Wonka just really took over that year. All right, so speaking of gross things, Mike, I think it's time we talk about
Touchstone Pictures.
Touchstone Pictures presents a Disney film. They took this, produced this partially, and put it out there into the world. And this is more or less a response to Batman the year before. It was a movie based on a comic that had a famous lead, had a femme fatale, had Danny Elfman music, basically the same plot.
They had a guy battling villains in a made-up city.
The villain dies the same way, but we'll get to that, I guess, a little bit later. But so, Mike, I think we kind of played our cards here. We've showed our hand, how we feel about this movie. So, having said all that, Mike, why don't you just...
let's go ahead and just stop. Everybody knows...
Yeah, all right. We'll see you next week, everybody.
There you go.
Right.
I'm sure there's somebody, maybe in Germany or Pennsylvania somewhere, that loves this movie. So let's give it the due respect it deserves.
All right. For those mentally disturbed individuals, Mike, please hit the button.
Yes.
So we start out with a little street urchin named the Kid, who happens across a bunch of mobsters playing cards. Just the coolest scene in the movie because you get all these cool characters. And then he sees there's like a massacre where they all get kind of shot within like 3 seconds, and all the cool characters are dead already. The Kid kind of bails out, and as he's
they never. You think the Kid would eventually tell Dick Tracy, like, "Hey, I saw that flat top guy. He was the one who killed those other guys," but no, he never did.
It's Well, they had a bunch of time to kill him, Mike. So
I know.
Why condense the plot quickly now?
It just made it's just like all they wanted to do was just show the scene where he shoots in the wall. It says "Eat lead, Dick Tracy" or whatever, and just recreate the bloody, the St. Valentine's Day massacre. It's like, okay, we got it.
Eat lead. All right, so we cut to our hero at the opera, of all places, with Dick Tracy with his girlfriend, Tess Trueheart, and he on his little radio transmitter on his wrist.
It's two-way wrist radio.
Yeah, he gets called to check out the scene, and he gives a bunch of orders to his commanding officers about rounding up these usual suspects, of course, and goes back to the opera and finishes that out. And as he's walking home, he spots that little kid who saw the murder. Who had stole someone's watch, and he chases him down, and he kind of takes him in because he's got no home, he's hungry, he's dirty, he smells. They actually make sure they let him know that he stinks.
How's your cold? Oh, pretty good, but I still don't smell so good.
I'll say you don't.
So they bring him on home. Then we cut through the other plot, which is Al Pacino here makes his debut as Big Boy. He ends up killing this guy named Lips, who's played by Paul Sorvino. And then he takes over his club, and his girlfriend, Breathless Mahoney, played by Madge here, of course. Tracy's trying to solve the murder of who killed Lips, and he suspects that it's Big Boy, but of course he has to get the evidence, so he starts interrogating mobsters and and Madonna, on questions about them testify so he can crack the case. And that puts him in the poor graces of the mob and shenanigans will ensue, of course. Big Boy organizes all the mobsters into one big, powerful ring run by himself, including, having enough influence on the DA here, played by Dick Van Dyke. So everybody's in on it. Mike, he's starting a crime syndicate.
Yep.
But unfortunately, rather than do something cool like that, the movie decides to do like this drawn-out 12-minute scene where Al Pacino is playing choreographer to Madonna and a bunch of dance girls. And this is, I'd forgotten most of this movie, to be honest, Mike. I know I just on the, macro level, I knew I wasn't a big fan of it. But I thought, okay, so far it looks cool, and I think this might be good. Maybe there's something I forgot. And then when this scene came up, I'm like, oh boy, because it was just tedious. He's screaming and slapping women and yelling, and it's
like you were saying there earlier when he was playing. He was in character even when the camera was off. It's like the camera should have been off for that scene.
Yeah, and the worst part was they cut away to do other things with other characters, and they cut back to him, and he's still doing the same scene. Yeah. And it goes on. They cut back like 7 times, and he's still doing this choreography scene. I'm like, we get it. He's a bad guy. Move on. My God.
That's Walnuts. Yeah, he's a bad guy.
But we get to see a little, Mandy Patinkin playing the piano back there. So that's cool.
That was a weird hairdo he had, by the way.
Oh, he's weird all over the place, Mandy.
If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why can't
But anyway, all right. So there's several songs they break into here, just kind of utilize
montage after montage after montage.
Oh, just not
there's
good.
There's a kid montage. There's a crime montage. There's a taking care of business montage. Where they have to show everything because every big bad guy is being taken out.
Yeah, I'll sung to the very breathless, sultry Madonna voice, which really gets old after a while, and it's not her fault. It's just the way the choices they made. Yeah. We get introduced this weird character called the Blank, which is this literally has no face. He's got the voice of Princess Leia in Return of the Jedi. her bounty hunter voice. That's all I could think about. When are you gonna unfreeze Han Solo so we can get this movie going?
Just relax for a moment. You're free of the carbonite.
So this character is interjected to kind of complicate add in a third element of complication for Big Boy and Tracy. Tracy's had, he planned several raids and starts bringing these guys in, and he's shot at a couple hundred times. And it kind of culminates with this big shootout at Big Boy's headquarters. They kill off all the interesting characters very quickly, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, Big Boy's men are worse than stormtroopers, if you want to use another Star Wars reference.
Yeah,
they're using Tommy guns, and they can't hit one cop with
just
them.
Just spraying everywhere. Can't hit anybody.
It's like nothing.
Surviving the fray are Mumbles and Mandy Patinkin at least, so that's good.
There you go.
But there's this ultimate fight at the end at the top of the building, and the Blank is there, and he's got Tess in a precarious position. He's leveraging Dick Tracy to take out Big Boy so they can rule the city together. And then the kid tackles the Blank, and of course this 72-pound kid can completely knock down this grown adult. The Blank falls down. The gun conveniently jettisons right over to Big Boy. The Big Boy shoots Blank, and then he trips and falls down the elevator shaft. Thrilling conclusion.
Yeah, it's something, man.
And then the big reveal here is that the Blank is actually Madonna. Breathless Mahoney.
She was behind it the whole time.
Behind the whole time.
Wow. It almost, and I got my fingers about, I don't know, 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters apart. It almost made me want to rewatch it and say, okay.
Go back and do
see if she really wasn't in the
thing.
scenes. Yeah, the same as the no face person. It's like, right.
Yeah. So after the Joker falls, after Pacino falls to his death, Tracy loves Tess, and they adopt the kid, and he changes his name to Dick Tracy Jr. And then we get another Madonna song, and then you go now. It's over.
30 seconds and no more Dick.
Yeah. 30 seconds too long, is my opinion. All right, so let's talk about awards and accolades here, of course, Mike. So this had a really, despite our petty view of it, it had a very big opening, $22 million. I did not contribute to that, but it had a domestic haul of $104 million and did a worldwide box office of $163 million. Remember, this is back in 1990 dollars. So you can take those numbers and multiply by about 7. That's what it kind of is today. So got 7 Oscar nominations, won 3 of them for art direction, which is incredibly well deserved, makeup as well.
Makeups, yeah.
Yeah, I think Stephen Sondheim, wrote one of the songs that Breathless Mahoney sang, and that won for best song. But Al Pacino was nominated for best supporting actor here.
Wow.
He must have been really thin pickings that year, but he did not win. He did not win.
Okay.
So, but yeah. But that's pretty much all I could really find about it. And, this was the theme we talked about discussing a little bit about this film. It's one of those big blockbusters that nobody even talks about. No one really recalls or really knows much about or remembers much about. It kind of goes missing in action in a lot of people's memory, which I think was a brilliant choice by you to pick this one, because, I would have never thought of this in 100 years. And I scour bibliographies and reference pages about 90s movies all the time, and this just never came up in anything. I would have never picked it.
Right. So. Yeah. It was, I remember traveling across the country with my parents, and I think my brother's with us, but that whole week, it was like late May, early June of 1990. This movie was on a full court press of publicity. Every TV show and there's nightly Dateline. They didn't have Dateline, but it was like the ABC shows or whatnot.
Oh yeah.
Nightline stuff. They would have interviews with Madonna and Warren Beatty. A lot of it was probably the Disney money being pumped in for revving this thing up. But it was USA Today, if people even knew what that is anymore. It was a newspaper that came out, and they would have giant articles about this Dick Tracy movie that's coming out this weekend. You got to see it, and it's going to...
The newspaper on the floor of your hotel room, guys, when you leave. Yes. As you're checking out.
It's free in the lobby. Go grab it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was so pumped up, and like I say, it had Disney backing, and it was a huge movie for that summer. And then after that, I have not heard much of anything about it, and that's it's intriguing to me too. It never picked up a cult following like the Batman movies. Kind of had sequels and stuff afterwards to kind of help the momentum. But the Dick Tracy movie killed off all its villains. So you really think about a Batman movie where you killed the Penguin, the Joker, the Riddler, Two-Face. Penguin, you name them,
Bane,
and the whole universe of villains in Dick Tracy was killed in this movie. So it was like, what are you gonna have a sequel of Mumbles in it? I mean, it made no
Mumbles,
sense.
The movie.
It made no sense to me at the time. I guess as a Warren Beatty thing, like you said, he would. I'm sure when he went into this, it was a one-time deal, and there was no thought of a sequel at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, Hollywood wasn't a sequel driven back then, so maybe they just maybe so. Maybe, I don't know, maybe. But I think the good news is that there is no sequel. That's what's. This had a relatively successful Sega Genesis game that I spent a lot of time with.
Oh, really? Well, that's wild.
Yeah, that's my only thing I can really take away from Dick Tracy element on my side. So,
yeah, all right, I watched it in the theater, and but like you said, I'm rewatching it. I had forgotten Madonna was the No Face character. It was like when I watched it the second time. It's been 34 years. It was like, whoa, it was like a real twist at the end. I was like, oh, she was, man, yeah.
Well, I got some pseudo-psychological explanations for that when I get to my section here. So let's put it through our Grumpy Meter. And the Grumpy Meter is a section of our show where we kind of go back and look at the movies we watched as young film goers back in the 70s and the 90s to judge how we viewed it the first time and how our opinions have changed as grumpy old jerks. On the rewatch. So, Mike, why don't you head us off? Talk about the first time you saw this, your opinion, and on your most recent one, what's changed, if anything?
Oh, well, I've already been playing my hand here a little bit. But it was Dick Tracy was a comic strip that I always avoided when I read the paper. It was in our local paper here in Rock Hill for years. And it was always like, I don't know. Some of y'all probably remember comic strips. There used to be these, 3 or 4 panel little things in your paper. There was probably about a dozen of them, including that stupid circle on the side that was Family Circus. But forget that. But Dick Tracy was always like between maybe Garfield and like Blondie, and I would skip it. Mark Trail was another one of those I'd skip. But anyway, Dick Tracy just seems stupid to me. And I'm talking about somebody who was in the late 70s, 80s, looking at these comic strips thinking, why they showing this guy? He's so not boring, but almost too good to be true. And
yeah, well,
we'd already had the 60s go through us. Why did we have to see this, like,
Well, the other kick in the armor was they would show you a 100-page storyline, 3 panels at a time.
Right. Yeah. And that was, the only thing I knew, there was a prune-faced character that was always popping up. And
I'm Dick Tracy. Bam! Take that, prune face. Now I'm prune face. Take that, Dick Tracy. Now I'm prune Tracy. Take that, Dick.
It was I guess it was just this. It took forever to tell a story, and why would you even read that in like that strip form? And why was it even in my paper? Like I said, it seemed like something from a bygone day that was still being continued. Yeah. And but but like I said, I think all the PR when the movie came out kind of got to me. I was like, well, I watch every movie anyway. In 1990, I watched this one, so yeah. And it was a summer movie that just kind of went over me like a breeze, and it was okay at the time, but I don't remember it. Watching it now, the visuals, I can see why it was so. I can almost appreciate the visuals because it mimicked the comic strip so well. Even whenever they would do like a setting for a scene, it was minimalist. There was maybe a vase on a table or one picture, but it was done just like the comic strip was drawn. Yeah. I'm an artist, and artists are lazy. So when you would see a comic strip, the backgrounds would be as minimal. You would see a window and maybe like a cheap picture or something. But that's how this movie was done, and it was really cool. And then like you said, the 6 colors, and by golly, they stuck to that palette. You had solid green cars, you had solid red cars. Yep. Everything was that palette, and I can appreciate it. It's very distracting. Madonna was also very distracting. I didn't think she fit the rest of the movie as well as the other characters. I mean, she was trying to play this gal from the 30s, but just did not have you compare her to the Glenn Headley role. It was 2 different eras being acted there, and that was a little off-putting. She did okay. I mean, it's hard to judge somebody who's mostly there just for their singing. Right. But yeah, I appreciate that. But I noticed about an hour and 15 minutes in, roughly, because I even paused, I realized this movie was starting to wear on me, and I was getting a little tired of it. And from then on, I was just kind of tuned out. I mean, I was like, okay, I get it. Yeah. Oh, Dutch angles. Oh, yeah. Here come the reporters on their old timey radio. I don't know. I had no feeling after that. It was just kind of, just end it, please. It started off so prominent. Like the first 15 minutes, I was like, this is really good. I don't know why this was such a meh movie for me in the past. And then, like I said, it did wear on me, and I realized eventually by the end it was almost too cornball-y to exist in today's kind of climate. But yeah. And who would you rather have, Stephen Sondheim or Prince? Think about it.
Wow. Talk about F, Marry, Kill. Yeah. All right. Nice job, Mike. So I'm pretty much exactly eerily the same, Mike. I hit that wall about 40 minutes. I'm like, I rarely do this, but I check the timer to see how much time is left because it was just. All right. So let me go back a little bit. So the first time I saw this, I for some reason, I chose to be contrarian about this movie because I thought it just ripped off Batman too much, and I was a big fan of Batman in that time. Down to the same strategy, the same shooting style, the same soundtrack. I mean, if you close your eyes, you think this is Batman because it's got the same kind of Batman march, and the Elfman score is very eerily the same. And it's just I don't know. No one asked me from the Batman headquarters to defend it from this movie. I just chose to. I don't know why I chose to die on that hill when I was 20 or 19 years old, like some idiot. But I just didn't want to deal with it. So I watched it on a VHS rental later, and all my suspicions were confirmed. It's like, oh, this is awful. I hated it. I probably gave it a 2 out of 5 just because it was pretty and colorful, and it just wasn't for me. But I was curious to see how I would react to it because I knew going in that I probably wasn't going to like this, but I was hoping to be proved wrong. And just like you, Mike, I just like it. Just was tedious. It was painful. It was like. What was interesting about it is like it was like tirelessly boring. Like nothing really happened. Like it wasn't exciting. And
I think when you have to use at least three montages, your screenplay is running a little thin.
Yeah, I thought the Madonna character was too played out. I mean, he would have been just like Dick Tracy fighting crime, maybe with that little kid thrown in for comic relief. That might have been interesting, but they just had too much going on, which is usually the death knell for a lot of movies like this. They just get too. This just try to check too many boxes with demographics or plot lines or whatever. What was it? I guess especially more painful is like it's not dated like it. Because it's set in the 30s, it's timelessly boring. It doesn't affect it doesn't matter what era, what generation you come from because it's a period piece, right? And those are typically independent of what era they were actually made. That's the definition of them. But even at that, it just doesn't. It was awful. I just could not find anything just to keep my interest in it, and I ended up doing that thing I try never to do. I do that little 10-second ahead button.
Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, for those montages and those songs, I mean, it was just filler.
I think I looked at my fingernails or something during those. I was just like, oh, I know what's going to happen now. Yep.
Yeah. So, and like I said, I try to give these movies the attention they deserve, but I was like just trying to finish up the script as I was watching the balance of the movie because I know it was like, nothing's happened in the first 40 minutes. What's going to happen in the last 40? So it was unfortunately just one of those things I just did not have a good time. And I had to spend $3.99 on Amazon to rent this too because it's not anywhere.
Same here.
So you know what you can get for $3.99, Mike? You can get waffle fries at Chick-fil-A for $3.99.
Or you can get a can of chili. That's what Dick Tracy likes.
You can get a 21-ounce can of cherry pie filling from Walmart for $3.99.
There you go.
Get like a large Dr. Pepper from McDonald's for $3. I mean,
all those things. Another movie. You could have rented
or a better movie. Yes, all those things you could have had, except instead of this. So
yeah, it was. I think we maybe, at least for me, I think I answered my own question about why this did not.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say revitalized, but did not have a cult following or a reemergence like a lot of movies.
There's nothing to cult to. There's nothing to it. There's no camp value. There's no. I don't know. The only redeeming, I probably would have gave this a 0 out of 5, but I gave it a half star because it just looked so damn great. I mean, that's the only redeeming value is like.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had talked about this, off mic a few times, but the aesthetic of this movie is, I guess, at least something to talk about, and so that got us thinking here at Grumpy Nostalgia about other films. So for this week's installment of You Just Made the List, Pal. Me and Mike thought it'd be funny to talk about other movies that are maybe the Butterfaces movies. Mike, they look great, but they're just terrible movies. Why don't we go through and pick a few? I don't know, however many may have. I'm going to try to limit mine to movies we haven't done on the podcast because I think there's a lot of movies that we've done already that kind of fall into that mold. But let's talk about some of our favorite films that were the only thing kind of redeeming value or the best thing about them was the way they looked and really nothing else. So, Mike, why don't you head us off?
Let's see. I got 3 things on my list. The Postman, The Postman, and The Postman.
All right. Good night, everybody.
All right. No, actually, you know what? I took a little twist on this. I thought of one movie that had really good visuals that was bad, and then the rest of them are movies that are just bad visually. So after thinking of one, I was like, you know what? There are some movies out there that just the visuals, for me, this is my own opinion, were so distracting that it took away from the enjoyment of the movie.
Okay, that works.
But let me get this first one out of the way. This one actually is one of the most gorgeous movies filmed. It's way too long, but it has lots of imagery of nature and the destruction of nature. And I've mentioned it before. It can't hurt to rehash it. And that movie is The Thin Red Line from 1998. It's a Terrence Malick movie, so you know you're going to get a lot of scenes of really good photography and long shots of a caterpillar going up a leaf, or
sign me up.
a bird flying, or in circles in the sky. It's a war movie, and it's like I've mentioned this before. It's a war movie that has probably one of the most stellar casts you can ever assemble together, and
Travolta too.
And Travolta, yeah, don't forget him. And what it ends up being to me, not even a war movie. And I know he's not going for a war movie. He's going for the destruction of war on your psychology and nature itself. And in that vein, it works. But like I said, if you read the book, or if you were expecting a movie about war in the Pacific, I'm sorry you didn't get that. But you got a beautifully shot movie. And that would be The Thin Red Line from 1998. It's not a bad watch. It's just go in there expecting David Attenborough to give a voiceover.
Okay, well that's a great pick, Mike. It's so good that I'm going to piggyback right off it. My first pick is going to be Tree of Life,
nice.
by the same culprit, Terrence Malick.
There he is.
This is from 2011. This was again a great cast. Brad Pitt, Jessica Chastain, among others. Interesting story, but the visuals of this film are fantastic. Like all the intercut shots and the transition scenes and the things of nature and the universe. But then you have to tell the story, and it was one of those things where it was 2.5 hour movie that felt like 17 or 18 hours. It just went on and on. Just the pace. It's a very, very slow burn to begin with. The subject matter is really tough because it's about a father and son and that relationship and how horrible it was. And if you have a whole day to kill and you have nothing other to do to contemplate what's going on in this film, I suppose it's great. But for the normal moviegoer, this is not really palatable. But again, visually, just one of the greatest films I've ever looked at, but not one of the greatest films I've ever seen. It had the cinematography here. It has to go. It lost. It was nominated for cinematography, but of course, it lost that year. The artist. The artist that won everything that year that no one has ever talked about since.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it lost to that. The art direction, it also got nominated for that, but it lost to another film that I can make the same argument looks great, but it was actually terrible. The Hugo. The Martin Scorsese cul-de-sac in his career. They decided to go make a movie like that. But Tree of Life looks great. But I can't recommend anybody watching this. So there you go. That's my first pick. All right, Terrence Malick, we're going to give you a little break.
Let's leave
great filmmaker, man. Don't listen to us. We don't know what we're
talking about.
What have we done? Nothing.
Could I film like he does? Nah. All right. And I came to realization of my second pick, and I know now why I disliked it so much. It wasn't the acting. It wasn't what it portrayed. It was the way it was shot. And that movie is Natural Born Killers. Like I said, if you watch this movie, prepare to be nauseated, because it's like it has thousands. They're not jump cuts; they're just cuts. And don't get me wrong. It's his satire of Bonnie and Clyde, or like a modern day Bonnie and Clyde, which is and it's making fun, not making fun, but it's looking at why we are so ADD or
satirical,
MTV generation, and it's supposed to be hectic, frantic, and have these jump cuts. But my goodness, it's the neon colors, the cuts, the Dutch angles, I can appreciate satire, but I can't appreciate the way it's filmed. And I think that was one of the things that really got to me watching this. I have yet to rewatch it. This is, like I said, this was the only movie that I almost walked out of the theater for. Never have before, but this one was damn close.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think it's just the visual medium of this movie, not the message, that really got to me. And I don't know if we're going to have to do it eventually. And
the message isn't that pleasant either. Let's be honest.
It's true, but it's still it's a story, and I can appreciate the story. It's just the way it's shot is almost just like wow. And I know Oliver Stone put a lot of time into editing this thing.
Yeah.
But my goodness, it should have, a few less cuts, please. But Natural Born Killers, like I said, maybe we'll do it in the future, and I'll have like a Salem's Lot moment where I'm like, okay, this isn't that bad. I can get used to this, especially after all of what we've seen in the last 33 years. We can take that.
Yeah, don't hold your breath. You're gonna hate it.
Probably so. But anyway, that's it.
That was me and my wife's second date.
Oh yeah,
that was an awkward date. We went to see Forrest Gump, and we saw this like 2 days later. Like, oh boy, not a great date movie, guys. All right, so my next pick is I'm a huge fan of this author, so I was really disappointed in the way this movie turned out. But Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, in 1998. Johnny Depp's performance is, it was okay. I think he went past the wall here. He kind of went. I think he overacted a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But again, how do you know? Because
right.
That's what Dr. Gonzo was for the most part.
Yeah, it's like
How do you tell the difference? But Hunter Thompson notwithstanding, I really wanted to like this film a lot more than I did. I thought Benicio del Toro was great because he got really fat to do his little cohort there. But visually, what I think it was Terry Gilliam, right?
Yeah.
Visually, again, what he did with this film, it looked like a surrealist kind of living art piece of art. It was just every scene is just its own little piece of it could be framed. It's just gorgeous looking. The backgrounds, the way it was shot, just to get that that stream of consciousness, drug induced feel, just looked fantastic. But unfortunately, when there's actual dialogue and the stream of consciousness plot, it just really pulled it all together. So I wasn't really ultimately very satisfied with it, other than just the way it looked. It was one of those most beautiful movies I'd ever seen. If it was just on mute, this probably would have been a much better movie for me. But again, one of those movies that had the right look, just didn't do anything else or execute very, very, very effectively. So that's my next pick, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, from 1998.
Nice. Oh, what should I go for my honorable mentions here? Costuming is a problem with me in some movies.
Yeah.
You get this is a catch-all for me. This is most Tim Burton movies. The visuals in Tim Burton movies are tough for me to watch. I think of like his version of the Alice in Wonderland. I have no interest in seeing, after just seeing the preview of the makeup and the way it's like. No, thank you. But there's other movies that get to me are, let me do one good one. We did Evil Dead 2. The way that shot and the cool way that the camera kind of follows you all the way to the cabin and the little zoom ins and zoom outs. That's so revolutionary. And without that, the movie's just kind of a basic horror movie, but you got the cameras and just I love that. As far as visually pleasing, that one's a good one for me. Now on to the bad ones. Polar Express, the animated Uncanny Valley Christmas movie with Tom Hanks. Yeah, the way those kids are drawn in that movie, and it's uncomfortable. I don't think I could watch that again.
They're not drawn; they're rendered.
Yeah, it's that computer rendering when it was still kind of not in its infancy, but it was still being kind of refined. Let's say, and it kind of crossed over into that valley, and that's a tough one for me. Speed Racer, I didn't like the cartoon from the original cartoon, and I didn't like the Wachowski's movie. That's just me. It's just too blah. Talk about a color palette that should have been dialed down a notch. I know they're trying to match the cartoon, kind of like the Dick Tracy movie is matching the comic strip, but it was wow. Talk about a movie that's just gonzo for me to watch. It's that one. The one that really got to me that I had to think about, and this is probably going to, it's not going to ruffle any feathers because it's just my opinion, but the one I had trouble with, and I haven't rewatched it in a while, is Clockwork Orange from 1971. It's the Stanley Kubrick movie based on the Anthony Burgess book. It's another one of those movies. It's a dystopian setting, so right away you're going to get just kind of weird clashes of color along with just basic white rooms and the Droog outfits. Just to me, that's just almost just, I know it's supposed to be just upsetting because the movie's very upsetting, but just that, and then the Malcolm McDowell scene where he's having his eyes opened up to watch all the different scenes of violence. It's just amazing. It's an amazing picture, but for me, it's uncomfortable just because of the visuals. And great movie, though. Hey. But like I say, that for me was the third one I could think of that was just like, yeah, okay. Good movie. With the visuals for me are so distracting that it makes it hard to watch. So there you go.
All right, so good one. Mike kind of reversed that one. So for my final pick here, I'm going to go with kind of a non-conventional one, but let me get to some of my honorable mentions first. So the first one is from 2007, The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
Huh.
Not necessarily a bad movie by any means, but one of my favorite books ever. And the pacing of this movie was kind of like if you're just reading the book. It's very slow burn, not a lot happens. But a lot of people will tell you the cinematography and the art direction of this film is like one of the best ever. And if you have a memory of it yet, but every scene here is just, it's complete. The composition of every scene is just perfect. It's just one of the most beautifully shot films I've ever seen in my whole life. Just the Wild West landscapes and the silhouettes and the framing, just really just a fantastic visual film. Just the pacing and some of the acting is a little wooden, but again, not a bad movie by any means. But one of those movies that just the visuals really steal the show. I'm here to defend Avatar because I looked at a lot of like hint lists here when I was doing my research. Well, Avatar looks great, but it's terrible. I'm here to talk about, and I'm not a fanboy by any means, but I'm really sick of people hating on Avatar.
No.
They took something that was completely original and they created completely new technology. They created science to film this. It had never been done before. And people say, well, it doesn't hold up. Well, you know what? I don't want to hear that. Just go make another friggin' Marvel movie, guys. But this movie took chances. They took risks. It was like maverick filmmaking. Well, it's the same story as like been done 100 times. Well, yeah, big deal. Name me one movie that hasn't. There's only 7 core plot lines in any.
It's Dances with Wolves, Justin.
Yeah, it's Dances with Wolves. It's just Pocahontas. So shut up with all that crap. These are the same people that'll complain about that, but they'll watch 14 iterations of Venom or Spider-Man. So I don't want to hear that. So I'm here to defend Avatar. James Cameron, you're welcome. But my ultimate pick here, now that I'm off my soapbox here, this may be a little unpopular, but I'm going to go with the movie from 2009 called Watchmen, talking about superhero films. A very non-conventional superhero film. I have this graphic novel by Alan Moore. It's one of my prized possessions. I think it's just a brilliant piece of literature. Dave Gibbons' artwork and John Higgins' coloring here is just fantastic. I think it's one of the greatest graphic novels ever written. I don't think it really translates to film, but I do agree. This is indicative of a lot of Zack Snyder's movies. I mean, they look great, but they're really kind of at its core, their core, very poorly paced, but acting is very wooden. The dialogue's pretty crappy.
It's just the best. The first 5 minutes of that movie is some of the best film I've ever seen.
Opening film montage where they got Bob Dylan's Times Were Changing. They show this alternate history of all this stuff as a result.
It's one of the greatest 5 minutes of movies for me. And then after that, it's like, eh.
But the movie does look great because they actually use like Gibbons and Higgins' art style. They use the same, again, like our previous movie here. They use the same color palette. And exactly down to like the number of the actual pigments were exactly the same to capture that. But the film overall is generally unpleasant, and it's not a very traditional superhero movie. It's more of a satire and look at social themes, things like that. Not one of my favorite movies to watch, but from a visual standpoint, this one just really is. No other movie looks like this, especially a superhero movie. They took a lot of chances here, but the subject matter and the acting and the violence here is just kind of off-putting in a way. But again, just another great movie that was a visual masterpiece, but not so good anywhere else. So, okay, Mike, we spewed enough venom there. I think that was pretty healthy, don't you?
Yeah, like it's sad that I can think of good stuff, but the bad stuff always rises. It says more about me than anything else.
Yeah, well, that's why it's called Grumpy Nostalgia, guys.
Yeah, we're grumps. We really are.
Spoiler. All right, so if you like what you heard today for some reason, you should check us out on Instagram. We're at Grumpy Nostalgia. You can send us an email if you feel compelled to. That we're at nostalgiagrumps@gmail.com. Check out our YouTube channel. Maybe you'll be the one. We do have another movie in the works, guys, so we'll make sure we'll let you guys know about that. But we'll get some video content up there shortly.
Oh, and again, can I say a word quickly?
Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt you, but this is very important. This is about voting, and I want y'all to think about voting. Whether it be for a chancellor or a prime minister or even a president. it's very important that you cast a vote, if it's this year, next year, whenever. Because if you cast a vote, if you send an email to Justin, just your one vote can decide what movie we do. Think about it. Your vote is important.
Global politics, next retro movie to be covered on a mid-level podcast.
Very important.
Your vote counts, guys. So do your civic duty and vote.
There you go.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for that public service announcement that no one asked for. Make sure you follow us. If you do listen to us, we're available on all podcasting platforms. We would really appreciate a follow. That really helps with our downloads. And it really helps kind of drive the algorithms for a lot of the new for those not unfamiliar with the podcasting business, they changed a lot of their Google Podcasts isn't a thing, and Spotify's changed a lot of their rules, and Apple Podcasts have completely changed their algorithm now. So they got a lot of new crappy rules. So if you were set up before, you probably are not anymore to get automatic downloads. So if you did like to stay, please follow, or whatever variant of follow the posting platform uses. We would really like to have you guys listen to us every week and hear your feedback. So there you go. So please do that for us. We ask so little, Mike.
That's right.
All right, so Mike, that's going to kind of wrap it up for this premiere of season 5. This was a fun one, and we got a long way to go. So anything else you want to say, Mike, before we get out of here?
Well, like Warren Beatty, I'm going to fly my Learjet up to Nova Scotia.
You know, Mike, for a tough guy, you do a lot of pansy things. Quote our little kid. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for this week's show, guys. So for Mike James, this is Justin, and we will see you again next time. No more Dick.
30 seconds, no more Dick. And that's not how you make a boiler explode, by the way, is cutting the pipes and releasing the steam. That's not going to make it explode. It does the opposite. Anyway, I should have mentioned that earlier. but I think the movie had lost me when they did the little thing where did they had his little partner jump down into the little seesaw thing and make him go up straight up through the glass. That was classic Dick Tracy.
Garbage. Oh, good. We're still recording.
All right. There you go.
Oh, shit.